Call.
Commission Chair Kramer,
Present.
Commission Vice Chair O'Connor,
Here.
Commissioner Bruner,
Here.
and Commissioner Wick.
Here.
Let the record show that we have a quorum with 4 commissioners attending and Commissioners Parker, Switzler, and Novi absent.
Okay, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance next. Would anyone like to lead us? I will. 1, 2, 3. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Maria, do we have any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, do we have any oral communications?
Yes, we have one speaker, Kelly McCormick, regarding smoke-free multi-unit housing.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening, I'm Kelly McCormick. I work with San Diego Alliance for Drug-Free Youth. We would like to thank you for adding smoke-free multi-unit housing to your work plan. Smoke-free living is healthier and better for the environment. As you know, discarded cigarette butts are a top source of pollution containing plastic filters and toxic chemicals. E-cigarette cartridges and disposable vapes also pollute the environment, containing plastic and toxic chemicals, in addition to lithium-ion batteries that leach heavy metals. They are classified as hazardous waste, but almost never treated as such. They're either littered on the ground or thrown into regular trash bins. We have seen reports recently about an increase in fires at waste disposal facilities related to e-cigarette batteries exploding. 82 California cities have approved smoke-free laws for apartments and condominiums. In a recent survey shared by the County of San Diego's Live Well office, nearly 70% of Californians answered that apartment complexes should require all the units to be tobacco and smoke-free and vape-free. Even 61% of renters said they supported a ban on smoking inside units. Secondhand smoke seeps through windows, doorways, ventilation systems, and electrical outlets. The residue sticks to virtually everything, from children's toys to carpeting to drapes to furniture. A smoke-free multi-unit housing policy would be a win-win for public health and for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more oral communications?
No more oral communications.
Okay, and it looks like we do not have a presentation, so we can move on to the approval of minutes of last month's meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve last month's meeting.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. And then we have an informational item from Ryan Lamkin.
Thank you, Chair Kramer, and good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ryan Lampkin. I have been serving the city of Encinitas as an AmeriCorps volunteer through the Civic Spark program. And I'm excited to share with you all tonight one of the large deliverables of my fellowship, which is the 2023 Climate Action Plan Annual Monitoring Report, or Annual Report for short. As the Commission is aware, the city has a climate action plan adopted in 2018 and revised in 2020 in accordance with the updated housing element. The Climate Action Plan, or CAP, is the city's guiding document for reducing community-wide greenhouse gas emissions. The CAP identifies 7 high-level strategies for reducing emissions, and under the umbrella of these 7 strategies are 20 unique CAP measures, all with specified targets and quantified greenhouse gas reductions if they are successfully implemented. The 2018 CAP also sets an emission reduction target of being 13% below the 2012 baseline by 2020 and 44% below the 2012 baseline by 2030. And to ensure that the city is making progress on achieving these targets, we published the annual monitoring report. The annual report will be published once it has gone to the City Council in August, And the climate dashboard is up to date with all of the currently available monitoring data. The climate dashboard acts as an interactive, live version of the annual report. In 2023, city staff made great progress towards implementing the Climate Action Plan. According to SANDAG's most recent greenhouse gas inventory, the city not only met but exceeded our 2020 target of reducing emissions 13% below the 2012 baseline. We exceeded that target by 1.6%, and SANDAG's most recent greenhouse gas inventory is from 2020. This table here outlines all of the 20 CAP measures and identifies their varying levels of implementation progress. In 2023, there were 12 measures complete, 2 measures on track towards being complete by their target date, 4 measures that were behind being complete by their target date, and 2 measures were on hold. It's important to note that the 2 on hold measures were as a result of Encinitas suspending our all-electric ordinance. During the drafting of this report, City Council has approved an alternative approach to decarbonization and building electrification, but that is not reflected in the 2023 annual report. Like I said earlier, each of the 20 CAP measures has their own unique targets and quantified greenhouse gas reductions, and you'll be able to find that throughout the report. And throughout the report, you'll see the data that the city has for each of the CAP measures. On the screen is an example of the data for a CAP measure. This is MBE1, which relates to reducing municipal energy consumption. You could see that it dates back to 2012 and goes until 2023. And many of the data metrics that we have for the measures are similar to this, but it is based on the most currently available data to the city. You can also see on these graphs the targets for each of the CAP measures. You could see here that the blue line represents the 2020 target, and the orange line, the 2030 target. So looking at this data visualization, you see that the city achieved its 2030 target for MBE1. And I'd like to take a moment to highlight some of the city's notable achievements up until 2023 for implementing the CAP. In 2023, 91% of Encinitans were held accounts with San Diego Community Power. And of those with accounts, 98% were subscribed to Power 100, which is the 100% renewable electricity offering. Since 2012, the city has planted 1,200 net new trees, and this accounts for trees that have been removed over the years. Since the leaf blower ordinance has gone into effect, there have been 216 code violations, and all of these code violations have resulted in corrections, helping to realize the greenhouse gas reductions and other co-benefits of the city's leaf blower ordinance. Since 2012, more than 6,000 homes in Encinitas have installed solar, and in 2023, the city joined the San Diego Regional Green Business Network and was designated as a blue city for our ocean conservation efforts. The CAP also highlights the importance of social equity and green jobs. San Diego Community Power is responsible for implementing several equitable energy programs, and in 2023, they finalized their Clean Community Power Plan, which outlines several programs and initiatives for low-income individuals to install energy efficiency and decarbonization retrofits in their homes. Eligible Encinitans will be able to partake in these programs. City staff recognize that underserved communities often don't have the same level of participation in the planning process and the climate planning process in particular. So we work to meet the community where they are so we can inform them of these planning processes or help them understand how they can get involved in climate action. And so we do that by attending community events, and in 2023, we attended 13, including the Spring Egg Hunt, the Spring and Holiday Street Fair, Dia de los Muertos at Miracosta College, the Small Business Outreach Fair, Leucadia and Cardiff Farmers Markets, just to name a few. And lastly, the city continues to operate our affordable housing programs. And in the 2023 annual report, you'll find a new visualization which shows the proximity of current and future affordable housing sites within the city to current and future active transportation plan sites throughout the city. Additionally, the city has 2 new green jobs data sources. Our CAP policies are directly working to bolster and support the local solar economy. And in 2023, Encinitas homes and businesses had 751 projects installed by locally based San Diego County solar companies. The city of Encinitas is also directly working to create green jobs to implement the climate action plan. And in 2023, there were 29 full-time equivalent city staff working directly on CAP implementation. While the city has made much progress towards implementing the CAP, there is still much work to be done, and we have identified the following areas to focus on in 2024 and beyond. In 2024, the city will continue to support San Diego Community Power in its effort to serve all Encinitans 100% renewable electricity, implement the city's green building regulations in support of electrification, decarbonization, and energy efficiency, revamp the city's green building incentive program to be more accessible to residents with existing homes within the city of Encinitas, certify and promote local businesses through the California Green Business Certification, which is implemented by the San Diego Regional Green Business Network, continue to install bike and pedestrian facilities to enhance mobility throughout our community, continue to maintain a healthy urban tree canopy and plant new trees within the city's urban forest, support city projects relevant to the CAP, including Leucadia Streetscape, continue coastal resilience projects like SCOOP and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Coastal Storm Damage Reduction Project, seek funding to install on-site renewable energy at municipal sites, complete a microtransit study to support future development of a microtransit program, and seek funding to install proposed roundabouts to improve traffic flow. Thank you, and I am happy to take any questions or comments.
We do have one speaker on the item, and that is Mark Wisniewski.
Sure, please do. Thanks.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. My name is Mark Wisniewski. I support the Climate Action Plan. I question whether the tree component actually is a benefit depending on how it is currently calculated. Between 2012 and 2023, the city has planted a total of 1,282 trees. It would be interesting to know how many of those trees survive to the current Climate Action Plan update. Also during that time, how many mature city trees, street trees, and park trees were removed. If you travel south on El Camino Real, between Crest and the first cross street south, on the west side there were 10 trees planted. On January 30th of this year, 9 were dead, 1 was barely alive. This last month, they were replanted. So does that count as 10 trees or 19 trees planted? There was an extensive scientific study done on CO2 sequestration by trees. The result was it takes approximately 33 years for a tree to become carbon neutral because of all the costs of carbon in growing the tree, transporting the tree, watering, maintaining, and pruning. As long as the pruning is done reasonably and well and not over-pruned, like happens to many of the trees in our city. On January 2nd, 1992, I organized a tree planting event called 101 for 101 for 120 volunteers to plant trees between Encinitas Boulevard and La Costa. We planted 4 different native trees: Coast Live Oak, California Sycamore, Monterey Cypress, and Torrey Pines. Before the start of the current streetscape extension project, 32 of those trees were still remaining. Over the years, they'd been hit by cars, removed for drainage projects. One was beetle killed 4 years ago. One fell for root constriction. And then this past spring, after the heavy rains, I was driving by and noticed that one of the trees had shifted on its root ball and it was partially exposed. I contacted the city and it was removed the same day because of potential hazard to fall on the northbound lane of 101. So in 2024, those trees that were remaining finally became carbon neutral. But even then, they didn't offset the losses from all the other trees that have been removed. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wisniewski. And thank you so much, Ryan. That was an excellent presentation. And thank you for spending your time and your skills working to make Encinitas a greener place. We really appreciate your efforts. And Crystal, thanks for your mentorship. Does anyone have any questions for Ryan?
I was just going to say, I agree. That was a very professional presentation. Thank you for all the work you've done in this. I know it's a temporary spot. How much longer do we have you with the city?
Well, I'll be around until August 2025. So
Oh, all right.
sticking
Super.
around for another year. So, yeah,
Good. Fantastic. Good job.
thank you.
Yeah, I echo that. This is really great. And looking through the actual report, I can tell there's like a lot of gold in here that I really want to dig into. One question I've had for a while, like data I'd love to see, is we always show the wheel of like high level emission sources. Do we have like layers deeper into there that could help us inform the next cap? Because it's nice to see like solid waste is almost 4%, or if I'm remembering correctly, but that doesn't help much, right? Like moving forward, what do we do about that? So just, I guess, a question if that data is available, and maybe it's in here and I just haven't seen it yet.
So that data on what informed that baseline emissions inventory would be in the original Climate Action Plan appendices.
Okay.
So if you can look for it there, and if you feel free to reach out to me if you have any trouble finding what the sources were.
Okay, so that explains like how the calculations were kind of done. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to say, go ahead.
Oh, I had a question and a half. Yeah, great report. If you're here for another year, what's your scope? And then, obviously how, any suggestions on how we can help?
Yeah, I do a lot of the outreach for our division, and this is kind of in line with the outreach that I do. It looks a little different, and it's more data focused, but really the annual report is still an element of outreach. But like I said, I am doing a lot of the attending of community events for the city, and I do a lot of the sustainability related social media posts. As far as the second part of that question, how you all can support me, I'm not too sure. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, think about it, let us know.
Okay. Thank you.
And I was just going to say one thing to our guest speaker on the tree canopies, that there's a subcommittee, and I think most of the members on it are absent tonight, so I'd ask for you to come back again and have them hear you directly. I'm going to talk to them a little bit about what you brought up, but I think hearing it from you again when they're seated here, that next month, I hope.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm on the committee. I've worked with Commissioner Parker, but it's been a bit stalled out since I've joined. So I took some notes, and yeah, please come back next month. Carol's definitely we'll say the lead or the most involved in that she has the most history. So appreciate you coming out. I imagine.
I had a question about kind of future actions to further reduce greenhouse gas emissions within the city. And then I know we had talked about this prior at the community workshop, and those workshops have been great. So yeah, thanks for facilitating them. What about like the consumption and use of things that require a lot of greenhouse gas emissions to produce, like plastics? Is that a consideration for future caps or for this updated cap?
I think it's something we could consider, but the key to what we put in the cap is what we have control over as a city. So that's the challenge that we have, is what is our ability to regulate or influence the reduction of those emissions. So what is our, legal capability in terms of regulation and or our, outreach capability, that kind of thing. So, but definitely something worth bringing up. Our next workshop is next week on Tuesday, the 16th. So yeah, definitely welcome you all to attend it and provide any input such as that. And we look into any thought, suggestions and ideas and see if they're potentially viable for the cap.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I gotta close this out. Okay, so any other questions for Ryan or Crystal? Okay, all right, I guess we can move on to, action items. June update of progress of the fiscal year 2024, 2025 to 2025, 2026. Work plan and review of the commission calendar. Take it away, Crystal.
Okay, good evening, Chair Kramer, commissioners. As we do every month, I'll be going over the July 2024 updates for your work plan. I'll note here that this is your brand new council-approved work plan for the fiscal years 2024-25 and 25-26. So we've updated the spreadsheet, so let me make it a little bigger for you guys. We've updated the spreadsheet so it includes your new, some of them are were on your prior work plan. Some are new, but these are your new as of this work plan list of projects.
Crystal, just to let you know, the plan is not showing up on the screen.
Thank you. There you go. Okay, so as we do with each new work plan series, we've stored and archived all of the statuses from the prior work plan, but we're kind of starting fresh now with the new work plan. So everything you see in the status here is from this current work plan and moving forward. So that's why you see mostly red here, almost all red here, is because this is a new work plan series. So as I do every time, I'll start with just going line by line and giving you all the updates. So for your first project, which is Commission Outreach and Representation, many of you attended the EcoFest, which was held on June 2nd, and had 45 exhibits and 1,200 exhibitors. And then the next project that had some activity was the native plant policy. On June 12th, 2024, Council approved the next year's fiscal year 24-25 and fiscal year 28-29 CIP budget and financial plan. This has allocated $150,000 towards the development of a simplified native plant ordinance. It has a revised project scope and a separate $150,000 for a demonstration garden. Both will be completed by the use of a consultant. The scope of work for the ordinance will provide recommendations for a native plant list, guidance and recommendations for the native plant ordinance, It will conduct environmental analysis and provide suggestions for a new city native plant incentive program. The demonstration gardens funding will be allocated towards the creation and installation of a native plant demonstration garden within one of the city parks, and will include educational and outreach materials and programs. City staff is currently working on 2 RFPs, one for the ordinance and one for the garden, and that is those 2 are expected to be released this month. So a lot going on there, and I will keep tabs on where staff is in this process and make sure that this council is included on the effort where it's appropriate. On Project 4, which is the mobility element update, the update here from staff is that they're currently finalizing the draft mobility element document and the mobility analysis guidelines, the MAGs, which is the implementation document. Additionally, the environmental impact report public review draft is being finalized, and a draft of the mobility element is expected to be available for the commission to review in the fall. On the 5-year CAP update, the next public workshop will be held on July 16th at the Community Center at 5:30. At the workshop, members of the public will have an opportunity to review and provide input on draft CAP measures, and concurrently, city staff from the Sustainability Division are meeting with other city departments to review proposed draft CAP measures with those departments. Moving on to the Green Building Incentive Program, city staff is currently in the process of incorporating suggestions from the subcommittee into the program proposal and will reconvene the subcommittee to review revisions when available. Jumping down to project number 10, which is the food service plastic ordinance. At the Commission's July 2024 meeting, which is tonight, this very meeting that we're in, there's a commissioner-initiated item recommending that City Council direct the development of an ordinance to amend EMC Chapter 11.27 to further reduce single-use plastics. And that wraps up the update for July, and I'm welcome any additional updates if you have any.
Crystal, just a question on the mobility element update. So the EIR is for the public is being finalized. Is that coming out in the fall, or is that, you think, before then?
Probably around the fall as
Okay,
well.
around
It
the same
usually
time.
comes out typically at around the same time as the draft, so that you can review them both concurrently.
Okay, and then do you know if they're expecting us to help out and review before the first draft is out, or?
I don't think so. You're definitely welcome to participate in that public effort and review it on your own as an individual. But my understanding is that the draft would come to this commission sometime shortly before it goes to council for approval.
Okay.
Crystal, I had a question for Tier 2. Are those the items that we could get to should something in Tier 1 get completed or
Yeah.
removed? Last time we looked at this, there's another one on the bottom.
On the next
Okay,
page, yeah.
On the next page, okay. There's 2 Tier 2s.
Didn't quite fit.
Got it, okay, now I see it. Thank you. Okay, all right, so I'll make a motion to approve this update.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and then we can move on to reviewing the calendar.
It's pretty straightforward. There's not much happening in late summer and fall, so, or at least that's scheduled. Of course, there will be things that come up that get on your agenda. I did watch the meeting that I missed last week and heard there was discussion on wondering whether there was going to be an August meeting or not. So it's up to you. My expectation was that there would be a meeting, but it's up to you. If we do have a meeting, that would be a great opportunity for staff to bring the cap measures to you and hear your input regarding the cap measures. The workshop will have been completed by then, and we'll be able to share out to you what the public's input was on the cap measures, and then get your feedback on that.
I would be in favor of an August meeting in that case, if it coincides with a cap update.
Why would we not meet?
There was, July meeting was originally canceled because it's typically the summer recess time for council, and I had requested that we reinstate it because we had the cap update process happening, and I wanted to get you guys that information. Unfortunately, because of timing on that and got conflict with another public meeting that was happening at that time, we had to postpone it. So if you want to, take a recess, you can, or if there's business to be had, then we can just keep it on the books.
I say keep it if we're gonna have the draft measures. Yeah.
Yep, I say keep it.
Yeah, I can agree with keeping it.
I'm curious, do we know when council comes back from vacation?
I don't know the exact date, but typically it's usually mid-August, so early to mid-August.
Okay, I think we have at least 3 of us that are in favor of keeping it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't think it
I'm good with it
necessarily
too.
needs a
I'm
vote.
around. Yeah.
We have a quorum. We have a majority that is
Yeah,
in favor of keeping
perfect.
it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't think
thanks.
it needs a vote because it's on the calendar right now. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and, oops.
So I guess we are ready to move on to item 9A, Commissioner-initiated action agenda items.
Did we vote to approve?
I don't think we vote on the calendar.
Or not the calendar, but the work plan? We did vote on the, okay, sorry, my mind blank. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, yes, we are ready to move on.
Okay, proposed amendment to food service ware ordinance, EMC 11.27, to further reduce single-use plastics. And this is put forward by a subcommittee composed of Vice Chair O'Connor and I.
All right, and I'm going to start out the presentation, and I'd like to thank Chair Kramer for all of her hard work in creating this PowerPoint we're going to show you, and then also the agenda report that's been completed. A lot of work goes into all of that, and she's had the lion's share, so thank you. You can go to the next slide. So basically what we're trying to do is to update the 11.27 ordinance that was passed years ago, because there's so many changes out there in the industry of compostable products and the like, and one of our sister cities is doing something similar, Carlsbad. So to start off, petroleum-based are non-biodegradable. They foul up the system, they foul up the environment, they actually are hard for our waste haulers to manage. They substantially contribute to greenhouse gases when they're made, and I think that maybe is why the topic came up with the cap, that if we can reduce the use of them in a way we're reducing their being made, might impact our cap. They're made of toxic chemicals. Many of them are carcinogenic. They break down into microplastics and nanoplastics, and micro is about the size of a pencil eraser, and of course nano goes into things that will can get into our bloodstream and even past the brain barrier, very small pieces. So they contaminate the air, we breathe them, they're in the water, we drink them, they're in the soil, they're in the food chain, they're able to be taken up into a carrot, and we eat the carrot. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the human body, it's in our blood, it's being discovered in many, many places. It's not recyclable. The vast majority of single-use plastics are not recycled, and recycling also can release additional microplastics as they are broken down and moved around. They pollute our coasts and oceans. Surfrider does beach cleanup up and down our coasts, and on both coasts, actually. And in 2022, about 84% of the items collected out of beach cleanups in the United States were made of plastic. They cause problems to our public waste streams. Most items with plastic additives are not compostable in the anaerobic digester, which we're fortunate enough to have through our waste management EDCO. So they end up in the landfill where they become little smaller pieces and off gas, methane, and other things that we don't want to have happen. I'll take the next slide. So Encinitas has taken steps in 2020. Plastic bags, Encinitas Municipal Code 11.26 prohibits the use of single-use plastic bags of less than 2.25 millimeter in thickness. And then, of course, we know after that was passed, the industry circumvented that by the language of what single-use is and created a thicker bag. And we're fortunate that our local state assembly, our state Representative Catherine Blakespeare has a bill up in the Sacramento that hopefully will pass to close that loophole. Food service ware, EMC 11.27, again in 2020. A first start, very good ordinance on banning the sale and distribution of styrofoam, egg cartons, ice chests, food trays, packing materials, and plastic straws by grocery stores, retailers, food providers, and again, it includes retailers, grocery stores, big box stores. Food service providers can only provide utensils upon request, and that's a state law now. Problem, it allows for the use of non-EPS or styrofoam plastic food serviceware, cups, lids, plates, bowls, trays, utensils, platters, cartons. So there's just a lot of things that are out there now that we shouldn't be using. So Katie's going to take it from here to the next slide.
Okay, so there is an action we can take to try to further reduce single-use plastics in Encinitas, this sort of barrage of food serviceware items that we face that has gotten a lot worse since COVID. There's just been more use of plastics. Even things that, we shouldn't be seeing in the city are ubiquitous now. And anyone that's ordered takeout recently, probably can confirm that you get utensils, even if you didn't ask for them, and they're all plastic, and everything's wrapped in plastic within plastic within plastic, and it's just a giant plastic, ball. So one meaningful action we could take is to amend 11.27 to require that all food serviceware items be compostable, or as many as we can. That is reasonably, we are reasonably able to request be compostable. Fortunately, there's a state law that was passed, I believe, in 2023, the Better Composting Standards Act, AB 1201, that will really simplify this process. A lot of other cities have done this. We're not the only ones, not even in North County. Carlsbad has a similar ordinance that requires marine biodegradable or compostable food serviceware items. And many other cities within California and throughout the nation and globally have done similar things to reduce single-use foodware items or single-use plastic foodware items. But it's resulted in this sort of list of alternative items that it requires a great kind of level of technical skill and curation of this project list of things that are allowed and not allowed. And there's a lot of confusion about what is truly compostable and a lot of mislabeling. Well, California's tackling that by passing this law. So it sets strict requirements for the labeling of compostable products. And by January 2026, only materials that are allowable in agricultural organic inputs under the Organic Standards Act, so things that can be put into the growing of organic food, basically, will be labeled as compostable. So this would, in effect, eliminate any plastic-based items, bioplastic or petroleum-based plastic. And so they would only allow fiber-based biodegradable products to be labeled compostable in California. And linking our ordinance to this law will make it easier for food providers, consumers, code enforcement, and just the general public to identify acceptable products. All they have to look for is the compostable label on the product to know, okay, we can buy this, we can use this. And it just doesn't require a lot of work for city staff to curate this list of what's allowable, what's not allowable. Restricting items to those that are truly compostable will also reduce consumer confusion because these things just look biodegradable. Like they look, it's wood, it's pulp. This can go in the compost bin. Like, whereas now it's like, okay, well, it's made out of fiber, but it's coated in plastic. It has a plastic liner. Like, where should I put it? So it should, make it also easier for consumers to know, okay, put this in the green bin. It can be compostable. And it will result in more items being correctly placed in the green bins and not diverted to the landfill. And it will also ensure that items that are in the green bin can be processed by EDCO's anaerobic digester because it doesn't have these, non-compostable additives in them. Okay, next slide, please, Crystal. And so here are just some ordinance amendment details. This is still in the conceptual phase and, open to suggestions. And I know if council decides to consider this, there'll probably be a lot of discussion about the exact details, but this is based on what other cities have done and kind of coming up with best practices. So there's kind of different rules for whether a food provider is dine-in, takeout, or if it's a retail business. So for dine-in providers, only reusable foodware will be allowed, except for paper napkins and trays, foil liners, and compostable straws. So if you have tables and chairs and people are eating where you're serving your food, you have to offer reusable foodware or allow people to bring in their own stuff with these exceptions. For takeout providers, before this really strict definition of compostable takes effect, this amendment would allow only natural fiber-based compostable materials that are certified by the Biodegradable Products Institute. This is kind of the best standard third-party certification that we have in the US right now. And then aluminum and foil would still be allowed. Again, anything not plastic basically could be allowed. And then after January 2026, after the state law becomes more strict with the labeling of compostable, then Encinitas will just allow things that have that compostable label to be used for takeout providers. And for retail, the idea is to have the same rules as for takeout providers. And there's some precedents for this for EMC 11.26. That also bans styrofoam, the sale of styrofoam for retailers. So it would just be kind of following what we've been doing. This is sort of a tiered approach. We're now applying this to single-use plastics too. And food providers must allow customers to bring their own reusable containers. And there are some exceptions here. We don't want to cause undue hardship, and there still are some items that just don't have a very kind of comparable alternative right now that is truly compostable. And an example from other cities is plastic lids on food or drink containers. But there's new items coming to market, every day. So the thought is we're moving towards reducing single-use plastics as a city, as a state, as a country. We're going to have more viable alternatives in the future so we can get a little more restrictive as we go along. Okay, next slide, please. And this action will further several city and state goals. So primarily our zero waste goal. We have a mandate under state law SB 1383 that says we need to divert waste out of landfills and compost more things. And EDCO, our waste hauler, has been stellar in making this happen and is a leader in this field. And we even have people from leadership from EDCO here tonight to comment on this and provide input, and we really appreciate that. And this seems like another step we can take to meet or exceed our zero waste goals in this area. It will further our CAP goals, and this is, why one of the reasons I mentioned this before, plastic production and use, and as Mark commented, just the off-gassing in the landfill, it's a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. And as the use of petroleum for electrical production and vehicles declines, plastic or petroleum, the petroleum industry is focusing more on single-use plastics. They want these things to be used more, and so they're putting more of these products out there. And so, combating that could go a long way in further reducing greenhouse gases. And then, we don't get so much into human health because this is the Environmental Commission, but this is like a primary driver for this amendment. Just I'm a scientist, so I'm reading a lot of the scientific literature about the human health impacts of plastics, and it's so scary. It's just a silent thing right now. But I heard talk that it was relating kind of like the level that we're at right now, understanding the kind of the profound health impacts that plastics are having on our health is kind of like back in the medieval times when we didn't understand lead, or we didn't understand, strychnine, or like really toxic things. We're just beginning to understand how dangerous plastics are to human health. And so we want them out of our city and our environment to the greatest extent we can. And so, on a global scale, this will also contribute to global plastic reduction goals. There's a treaty going on right now, the UN Global Treaty on Plastic Pollution, and its key goal is on reducing problematic and avoidable plastics, and it calls out single-use plastics. So this is in line with a global UN goal, too. And but that's what we have, and happy to take questions and comments from the commission, and then I think we have some speakers. Thanks.
I was going to make a couple more comments. The city was nice enough to notify our chambers that this topic was coming up, since it will impact businesses. And there have been a couple of emails that have come in, and I haven't been able to read all of them, but the gist of one was durability of a product that's made compostable, and then a potential cost. So we'll definitely be looking into those type of products to ensure that they meet the needs of the businesses, and that the price points are not out of this world, that they're comparable to what they're using now. And then second, we do have I think some guest speakers, and EDCO management is here, very supportive of what we're doing. But again, we have to remember it's a very complicated overall picture of our waste stream, that the date, if the city council were to approve something and then enact it with a grace period, there is no magic light switch that's just going to change the entire nature of how the product that we're using there won't be contaminants from outside sources to divert things to the landfill. That we hope to see an improvement, that everything gets into the digester, but it's such a complicated system that until almost everybody comes on board, like our sister city, Carlsbad, there will be the ability for contaminants to get into the system. So it's not going to be a perfect thing, but it is a start, and it is a very hopeful ending that the plastic situation will be curbed dramatically over time.
I think the idea of
Sorry, before we get into question or comments, I think there's a couple of speakers on that item, so if we could.
Sorry, I apologize. I didn't know the order that needed to go in.
There's one speaker, Jim Ambroso.
Well, good evening, and I'm Jim Ambroso from EDCO, and I just wanted to take this moment to applaud you for the work you're doing on this. We've had the opportunity to sit and discuss this before it got to this stage, and have some input in language and just the whole approach. And frankly, someone who's out there collecting this material every day and trying to find ways to compost and break it down and create renewable products out of it is a big challenge, and we have to support this. This is all heading in the right direction. We need to get the plastics out because they're everywhere. I sometimes like to describe our role as we're the catcher out there. All of us are consumers. We're generators of products, waste products, and materials, and we're on the other end of that. And whatever people put in those containers, we get it, and we have to try to figure out something good. And it's a difficult task. As Mark said, passing this will be great. It's a step in the right direction, and we got to keep going. We got to go quickly. But in the end, we're the ones that are going to still get all this, and we're going to have to still sort it out for a while until everybody's doing it, and we get nothing but non-plastic materials being put in our green containers. We still got a job to do, but we got to do it. And your actions being taken here will get us there quicker, faster, and it's a necessary step we got to take. So I applaud you for doing that. The only question is timing. Waiting for AB 1201 to go into effect may be politically better for some of the stakeholders who are out there, are going to have to absorb the impact of this and the cost. I say let the city council decide that. You can advance it and let them think through that. But now or later, doesn't matter to us. We applaud it. We want to see it move forward. And it'll only help us as the catcher to get better material, make better products, and we'll see plastics go away. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, did you have any questions, comments? Oh, do we have another speaker?
There's only one pink slip.
Okay, thank you, Maria.
Yeah, so I had a couple questions, but first, thank you guys. You spent some time on this. Mark, you actually covered my first question. I think if I put my devil's advocate hat on, the cost is like, hopefully we can get some restaurateurs to bolster your, have the cost side of it in this. I think what also would help is, because I saw the other cities, like it might be worth it to really pull out like what's different about what you're proposing and what they've done. Because I know I read, you put what they've done, but it might be worth like a summary of like, this is like, I don't know if it's, you're doing something drastically different, the same, or, maybe similar. So that was one. And then, in an effort to, fear always helps, but, for example, the human health. I imagine there's studies or some concrete evidence, right? I think the way we're saying it is, and we would all agree, reducing it is good, but you could bolster it a little bit by citing a study or and I could help look for something, but fear is always, concrete fear is always helpful in these things. And then the last one I had was, I'm always impressed by the ecosystem of research, but it have universities and nonprofits and, the EDCOs, have they exhausted their efforts at how to deal with single-use plastics? I mean, I've never looked into this, but I'm definitely going to Google it.
You mean like having microbes digested and make it like
Yeah,
something
like-
biodegradable?
I put in quotes recycle it, but I'm sure somebody is looking at, because, there's
There-
tons and like literal tons of this stuff.
Yeah,
I guess,
there is research related to like plastic-eating microbes.
Yeah.
It's just not there yet.
It's not there yet.
No. But,
okay.
yeah, that's one kind of like piece of the puzzle, but it's
Right.
a long ways down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was it. I think this is great, and add a couple things to the storyboard, and I think we're good.
Cool.
We were
Thank
just
you. Appreciate that.
given information from scientists at UCSD who's doing that microbe work on plastic, and there is some encouraging. It degrades. If that piece of plastic goes in the ocean, it takes a year. It might take 3 months for the microbes to be able to get it to look not like plastic. But the scientists themselves says they're not sure what that becomes yet.
Right.
So there's lots of work being in the industry. If you watch TV, the Plastic Council is talking about all the billions of dollars they're spending to try to make plastic completely recyclable, like aluminum.
Okay, I imagine. Yeah.
There is no answer to their commercial. They're trying. So yes, the hope is there.
Interesting. Okay.
If you want to look at the references we did have a report on the human health impacts of plastics, and it's terrifying.
Well,
And-
it'd be good to like add that in like a
Okay.
picture or in the slide. I think pull
Yeah.
something out of that.
And then there's another study in there that talks about how recycling plastics just makes micro and nanoplastics. So it actually creates a lot of smaller plastics that are easier
And
to
pull
get
that
into
out
the-
and like put that in there. That's
Okay.
that's all that's my
Good.
that's my 2 cents.
I was just going to comment on, I think it's an interesting idea to include material use and plastics in the cap, and is that like calculation maybe in the next, I guess, go around, because the Sen has already done that for what we're using for this cap update?
No, this is the right time
Oh,
to do
okay.
that. So yeah, this workshop will be presenting draft measures, but we're still seeking input on feedback on those. And did we miss some? That's part of the question, the inquiry.
Yeah.
Should they be modified? Are they, too excessive? Yeah, so we're right there.
Well, I guess I mean, like, this wouldn't be included in the pie of our emissions
Oh, I
today,
see what you're saying.
right? So is it too late to like include that? Because
I can
actually think
ask
this would
the
be, like-
consultants. It
Yeah.
might be a challenge to pinpoint what's actually attributable to Encinitas itself. So that's our key challenge is, what is related to our businesses and our residents. So if that's difficult to quantify, then we probably wouldn't be able to include
Yeah.
it in the
Okay.
inventory.
you can make some assumptions or guesses. I don't know. It would be interesting to see. I think it would be a lot higher than maybe like you might initially think too. But the other question I had for you two was if in your research of other city ordinances, has anyone thought about completely moving away from consumables, and how do we like incentivize people to actually bring their own cup or actually bring their own stuff? Because that takes a lot of the concerns the businesses have off of them. If people are actually doing it, they don't have to buy all this stuff, then like it might be less of a concern for them. So is there something we can do to encourage that, I guess?
That's a piece we didn't discuss tonight that needs to be the next step is outreach to businesses and trying to lower the burden, talking about possible incentives, if that's within the realm of possibility for the city to help businesses to transition to these alternative items. But some of the cities, just in my research for this, and Mark probably has a good handle on it too from his work with Surfrider, they have offered, businesses can offer discounts if you bring your own reusable wear in. Many cities require, like this proposed amendment would, for takeout would, dine-in would require that food service providers allow people to bring their own stuff in. For a long time, it was a health code issue. I think it was the state and city levels. You couldn't bring your own things in because it could have contamination issues. But now the state law has changed, and so the businesses, need to be able to accept these items.
And Surfrider does have an ocean-friendly restaurant program, which would tie in perfectly to an outreach. I don't know how you coordinate it with the city, but it's a program that helps the restaurants realize that they can use better products and make their customers happy and let them bring in their own containers and things. So it's out there. It just needs to be staffed, volunteered.
Yeah, I even got reminded, actually, our company just did away with cups and everything, and it was, they, had a whole thing about it, and they got us our own cups, and it was kind of interesting watching, even for myself. I was like, oh, it's gonna be kind of a pain, I gotta carry this thing around, but it was interesting after, people complained about it, but very quickly they stopped. They were like, oh, when you're kind of forced to do it. So maybe that is interesting about just forcing no reusable stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's bold, but
There's examples of this already happening in many businesses within our city you can go to, and they don't have any plastic. They have totally compostable utensils, containers, trays, plates. If you dine in, you don't get single-use items. You get reusable items. So it's totally possible. It just requires a little imagination.
yeah, that's a lot.
I just one comment, if you don't mind, and it's something that you already brought up, Chair Kramer. I just wanted to share that from a staff perspective, we would very much appreciate if the commission reached out to the restaurants and the retailers to get some feedback from them before going to council. I think council would very much appreciate knowing what their thoughts are before making a decision on how to move forward.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good
thank you.
feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Okay, I guess we are moving on to number 10.
Do we need a motion to
Yeah, do
Oh, yeah, I
we-
guess we need a motion. Do we need a
yeah, what-
motion?
Do we
to
approve?
Do we approve
to-
this?
To
You
put it on the
would-
work
yes,
plan?
you
or-
would need a motion to recommend that this goes to council for direction. Yeah.
Do you want to make that motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion that an amendment to 11.27, the single-use plastic ordinance, be forwarded to City Council for review and vote and approval, to send it back to staff and the commission to create the documents and amendments needed to fulfill their goals and visions.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor? Oh,
Before I vote on that, is,
Yeah.
because now it's a bit of a unanimous, it'd be good to add a couple of those things, like the cost, a little bit of the feedback. Are you proposing that you guys will tweak this a little bit before you send it to them? Because I think
Sure.
parsing through the
That
emails
could-
and.
That could be, let's amend it then to include outreach, initial outreach to cities, to the city businesses,
Yes.
to get feedback on products and by their durability and costs, to also bring back to council for their review when when it's on their agenda.
so yeah, just for clarification, would that mean that we would need to present that additional information to the Environmental Commission again before it moves on to consideration by council?
I would say that wouldn't hurt. It could be an informational item because you've
Okay.
already voted on the action
Okay.
to take it to council, and then you could bring back, just an informational item sharing
Okay.
what you learned.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think the definition that Mark said, just approving this to be considered by council after we do some of the outreach to businesses and research on kind of durability of these compostable alternatives.
And I'm going to guess that with council being gone for a while and coming back to their mid-August meeting, their agendas are going to be, I don't see it, this is going to happen really fast, a couple of months maybe till it pops up on an agenda. But so I'm saying we have time probably to accomplish those extra outreaches.
Okay, I seconded, I will second that new motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to number 10, updates on items of interest to commission or announcements by commission members or staff. Okay, anyone have anything? Any updates?
I will just reiterate that the CAP update workshop is next Tuesday on July 16th. It's going to be at the community center at 5:30 p.m. and certainly welcome the commissioners to attend. And of course, it's a public meeting. We'd love to hear from as many public that can attend on their feedback on the CAP measures.
Great, thank you.
And Moonlight Beach will be having a Surfrider Beach cleanup on the 20th, Saturday, from 9 to 11. Everyone's welcome.
And I saw Dog Days was on the thing. Isn't that coming up? Dog Days of Summer?
What is that?
I saw it on it's on the work plan, yeah.
Oh, the dog.
I think it's August or something.
What is the Dog Days of Summer?
Dog Days of Summer is a city event for pet owners, and it's believe it's at the Encinitas Community Park. And
Okay.
bring your pets, and there's booths and vendors, and it's all geared
Got
around
it.
animals.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Anyone else have any updates? Okay. Okay, any future commissioner-initiated agenda items? Okay, with that, sorry.
I actually have one, sorry. We talked about briefly, like what Santa Monica adopted with the low carbon cement ordinance, and we kind of chatted about in the, I forget exactly what it was called, but the rules of where the city spends their money. It's in our work plan now. I'm blanking on the name, but
The environmentally preferable purchasing policy?
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Someone I work with is actually one of like the kind of leaders in low carbon cement, and I asked her if she'd be willing to do a presentation. She said yes, if that's something we're interested in. It's
Great.
pretty in the weeds, but could be interesting if that's something we're actually going to think about down the road. I don't know if that's something we want to do soon, but I'm just kind of putting it out there. That's an option.
Yeah, I would share that with the presentation subcommittee. I'm blanking on who's on that committee right now.
Carol, right?
Carol.
I think.
I think Ari.
Ari and Carol,
Okay, I can shoot
perhaps?
them a message.
Maria,
yeah.
do you know? Yeah, shoot them a message, and sounds like, would be good timing for that if
Okay.
your presenter is available, and yeah,
Okay,
you can get it scheduled.
sweet.
Thank you. That sounds interesting. Okay, I think with that, we can adjourn. Thanks, everyone.